The soft hum of a laptop fan was the only sound in my room, besides the frantic tapping of my fingers. It was late, way past when my parents thought I was asleep, but I couldn't sleep when there was this itch, this gnawing need to know. On the screen, a grainy image of the Blackwood Mill from the 1970s stared back, a colossal, crumbling brick monster. Beside it, an open forum post. And they never found a trace, not a single thread of their work clothes, just gone. The town swept it under the rug, calling it a collapse. But folks, remember, some things don't just collapse, they consume. Haunted History Buff got it. I was typing a reply, but my gaze kept drifting to my corkboard, to the faded faces of Harold Jenkins, Agnes McConnell, Billy Thompson. 3 real people erased. A structural collapse that was just too neat. I grabbed the old folded map from my bedside. It was an old town survey, but someone, long ago with spidery ink, had added a sub-basement beneath the mill's main floor labeled Storage Access. Why hide it? No official blueprint had shown this. It was a secret, plain and simple. I traced the lines with my finger, a prickle of anticipation running through me. Then it started. A low, rhythmic thump, thump, thump. It vibrated through the floor, barely perceptible, but distinct. I froze, head cocked. It was coming from outside, from the direction of the old mill, about a mile away. I'd heard it before, always late at night, too regular for wind, too deep for natural sounds. It was like a pulse beating beneath the earth. I pushed off my bed, crossed to the window, and peered out into the inky blackness. Just trees, but I felt it. The thumping was relentless, almost an invitation. A shiver ran down my spine, not a fear, but an excited dread. This wasn't just history anymore. I grabbed my backpack, pulling out my powerful flashlight, new batteries glowing. My worn sketch pad and charcoal pencil followed. I flipped to a fresh page, my hand already moving. I sketched the mill's outline, then added the sub-basement with deliberate strokes, an arrow pointing to the tiny, almost invisible ground-level access point I'd deciphered on the old map. The thumping outside seemed to intensify, a silent pulse guiding my hand. The truth starts here, I scrawled beneath the drawing. I slipped the sketch pad into my backpack, threw on a hoodie, and quietly made for the door. Sarah would cover for me. My parents would never know, yet. The air outside was different, heavier. It smelled like damp earth, rusted metal, and something else. Something faint like old dust and a hint of decay. The trees around the mill were thicker, darker than anywhere else in Havenwood. They clawed at the sky, skeletal fingers. It was late afternoon, the sun already slanting low. The fence around the mill was easy, almost too easy, like it wanted me to come in. The mill itself was a monster, windows like empty eyes, shattered glass sparkling like tears on the ground. The main entrance was boarded up, planks so rotten they'd crumble if you just looked at them too hard. But I wasn't going for the front door. I was following the map. It showed the access point on the northeastern side, near the old power generator shed. My heart was doing a drum solo, thump, thump, thump. But it wasn't the mill this time. It was me. I found it, or rather it found me. The map was spot on. Hidden behind a tangle of ancient thorny vines, half buried under a landslide of crumbled bricks, was a door. Heavy, made of something like cast iron, crusted with rust. No handle, just a small circular depression where a latch should be. The air here felt colder, still, like a breath held. I scraped away decades of leaves and dirt with my gloved hands. The vines were thick, like grasping tentacles. I pulled, tugged, struggling to expose more of the door. My multi-tool probed the latch depression. It wasn't a simple latch. It was a locking mechanism, or a puzzle. The map hinted at it. Access requires patience. As I pried away more debris, I saw it. Scratched into the rust near the bottom of the door, almost invisible, a series of faint symbols. Circles and triangles arranged in a specific pattern, like an old combination lock, but for shapes. My mind raced. These weren't random. This was a sequence, a code. Someone had wanted this door to be a secret, a very deep secret. And maybe they'd wanted it to be found eventually. A very subtle, almost imperceptible whisper of wind seemed to emanate from behind the hidden door, distinct from the rustling leaves. I looked around. The woods were silent now. Too silent. The air was still. No birds, no squirrels, just the rustle of my own jacket. That feeling of being watched intensified. A prickle on the back of my neck. I spun around. Nothing, just trees, and the looming, silent monster of the mill behind me. I needed to go. For now. I had the symbols. I could research them. This was enough for today. More than enough. The door wasn't just hidden, it was guarded. Back in my room, the adrenaline hadn't worn off. I was buzzing with it. The thumping from the mill was still present, possibly stronger. A low hum beneath everything. I was scanning old Havenwood history books, local legends. Hours melted away. The symbols. They felt familiar somehow, like something from folklore, or an old nursery rhyme. Havenwood had plenty of those, usually about grumpy gnomes or unlucky fishermen. Nothing like this. But then, there it was. A recurring motif in old Havenwood settler stories. A forgotten indigenous symbol, used in rituals to ward off hungry spirits, or to bind that which consumes. It matched the tiny asterisk I'd found inside one of the triangles. An asterisk, a guardian. I was putting it all together, the Whispering Woods, where the mill stood, local superstitions about an ancient, malevolent force rumored to exist beneath the earth. It all fit, too perfectly. As I worked, the strange occurrences in my room escalated. The lights flickered. A shadow passed my window when there was nothing outside. A book slid an inch across my desk. The feeling of being watched became almost palpable. A cold breath on my neck. It wasn't just history I was digging up. It was stirring something. But I couldn't stop. I'd found it. The sequence. I couldn't wait. The obsession had deepened, digging its roots into my very bones. My rational mind tried to chime in, "This is dangerous, Maya," but it was drowned out by the fierce need for knowledge, for the truth. I was back at the mill. The atmosphere was heavier, the thumping a pronounced vibration in the air around me. I could hear it even now, a low, guttural growl that seemed to emanate from the very earth, and now distinct sounds from within the mill itself. A metallic scrape, a low groan, like something ancient and vast, shifting its weight. The fence was still broken, almost like it had been widened since yesterday. My hands trembled, but my purpose was steady as I approached the hidden door. The symbols on its rusted surface seemed to shimmer faintly in the dying light. I pressed them in order, the sequence I'd painstakingly uncovered, my breath held tight in my chest. Each press felt like a small act of defiance against decades of forgotten secrets. A heavy, ancient, grinding sound. It reverberated through my bones, shaking the very ground. The door unlatched, slowly, agonizingly, revealing a blast of cold, stale air, smelling strongly of damp earth and something metallic, something almost like blood, absolute suffocating darkness within. My flashlight beam cut through it, a fragile spear into the unknown. I reached a small chamber at the end of one tunnel. My flashlight beam settled on the center. A dark, viscous pool of something that shimmered faintly. And lying beside it, half submerged, was an object. An old, tarnished, but unmistakably familiar locket. The same locket Agnes McConnell, one of the missing workers, had worn in her last known photograph, pinned to my corkboard back in my bedroom. My hand trembled, a cold dread washing over me. The thumping from deeper below the pool resonated now, no longer a beat, but a slow, monstrous chewing. A cold draft, smelling of decay and that metallic tang, snaked up from the shimmering pool. This wasn't just a cold case, it was an active threat. My curiosity had led me to the very edge of the abyss, and something was waiting. My breath hitched, catching in my throat. I couldn't move, couldn't tear my eyes from the locket, or the shifting, oily surface of the pool. The chewing grew louder, wetter, like something tearing through thick meat. From the depths of the pool, faint swirling patterns began to form in the viscous liquid, concentric ripples expanding outwards. Was it just the draft? Or was something stirring? Then, in the periphery of my flashlight beam, I saw it, just on the edge of my vision, at the far side of the small chamber, near where the pool seemed to disappear into a deeper crevice. A fleeting movement. A shadow, darker than the absolute blackness of the tunnel itself, seemed to detach from the wall. It was too fast, too fluid, to be a trick of the light. My flashlight beam darted, cutting through the thick air, trying to pin down the movement. Nothing, just the rough-hewn rock walls, damp and ancient. But the feeling of being watched, which had been a low thrum since I first approached the mill, now roared. It was no longer a feeling, it was a presence, heavy, hungry, ancient. The chewing stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. It was absolute, suffocating. The air in the chamber became heavy, pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. The cold draft from the pool intensified, wrapping around my ankles like icy fingers. I took a shaky step back, my eyes wide, desperately trying to pierce the darkness beyond my flashlight's meager reach. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trying to escape its cage. This wasn't just old superstitions, this was real. The missing workers hadn't just vanished. They had been taken, devoured. Then, a new sound, impossibly close. A low, wet slithering. It came from the surface of the pool, then across the damp stone floor. My beam flickered, trembled in my hand. I swung it wildly, catching a glimpse of something, not solid, not truly defined, but a shifting mass of shadow and impossibly long, thin tendrils that seemed to writhe and undulate with a sickening grace. It was pulling itself from the pool, heading towards me. Panic, cold and sharp, finally broke through my fear. I spun around, clutching the flashlight like a weapon, and scrambled back the way I had come. My boots slipped on the damp floor, and I almost fell. The carvings on the walls, those distorted figures, now seemed to twist and writhe in the flickering light, mimicking the horror I'd just witnessed. The slithering sound was gaining on me, echoing in the confined space of the tunnel. I heard the wet thwack of those tendrils hitting stone, closer, closer. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but I pushed myself faster, desperate to reach the narrow opening, the hidden door, the outside. I could almost feel its presence at my back, its hungry intent radiating like a physical heat. I burst through the hidden door, tearing through the last of the thorny vines, not even noticing the scrapes and cuts on my exposed skin. The late afternoon sunlight, even dim, was blindingly bright. I stumbled out onto the overgrown path, gasping for air, gulping in the fresh, clean scent of earth and pine, anything to dispel the metallic stench of the thing in the tunnels. I didn't stop to look back, I just ran. My feet pounded the ground, carrying me through the thick woods, over the broken fence, and away from the gaping, hungry maw of the Blackwood Mill. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it had consumed before, and it would consume again. And I knew with a terrifying certainty that it had just found its next target. My curiosity hadn't just led me to the truth. It had dragged me into the darkness, and the darkness now knew my name.